have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA 2012. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup. We haven't changed. The year has, though.
But we have crawled out of our sick beds to do this show this week.
I'm alert this week. Last week I was in a total fog.
No, I'm pretty much recovered. And we do have a lot of news, and we start off with some good news from Hawaii and Delaware, which kicked off the year with the commencement of civil unions for same-sex couples.
Hooray. We'll show you a little of that from Hawaii, actually. Of course, LGBT issues continue to make big news in the Republican presidential contest, although we're taping on Tuesday before the Iowa caucus results are known.
The Catholic Cardinal of Chicago has compared the LGBT Pride March to a Ku Klux Klan rally.
We're going to show you that if you don't believe us. But the Roman Catholic Church in general is creating a haven in the U.S. for those gay-hating Episcopalians, the Episcopalians who are gay-hating, not all Episcopalians.
Right. Michigan's governor has signed a bill banning domestic partner benefits. That's his Christmas present to us.
There's a real job creation movement. Doctors Without Borders is challenging Johnson & Johnson to free up some HIV drug patents so the poor can get them in the third world. This is an ongoing campaign against pharmaceutical companies.
We learned this week that a new biopic on Elton John is planned. By Elton John.
And stick around for Andy's top 10 theater list for 2011.
Right.
But it's 2012.
Yes, but I haven't seen anything in 2012 yet.
You haven't? It's the third day of the year. What's wrong with you? Oh, I know you're sick.
Right.
All right, let's start with actual news. Well, when the clock struck January 1st, 2012, several new laws kicked into effect, including civil union laws in Hawaii and Delaware. It is now legal in those two states to have a civil union.
And let's not forget that Hawaii has had reciprocal benefits, the only state to have them.
And they started this whole marriage debate 15 years ago. Yeah.
And let's not also forget that same-sex marriage is not banned in Hawaii.
But nor is it legal.
Nor is it legal because what they voted for in Hawaii was a constitutional amendment to give the legislature the power to regulate marriage. And at first they gave the reciprocal benefits, and now they've graduated, now that they got rid of their closeted lesbian governor,
who they may elect to the Senate. She may beat Tammy Baldwin to the Senate. Who will come out first?
Linda Lingle?
Linda Lingle, yes. And in Delaware, they made civil unions legal, and they held some big civil union ceremonies. The Senator Chris Coons showed up at one of them, and the lieutenant governor. But the press started off by getting it wrong. They were calling them marriages because, in fact, there were religious people conducting these ceremonies. But then, sort of on the third rewrite, they got it right on civil unions. But we have an actual local news report from Hawaii on the starting of civil unions in that state. So let's look at some of the happy couples.
We now pronounce that you are legally joined as partners in life.
After midnight, in the opening moments of 2012, the first civil unions became official in Honolulu. The event was held at a beautiful private home in Aina Haina. It was organized by a number of gay, lesbian, and transgender activist and support groups. The celebration began on New Year's Eve. There was a party, a recognition ceremony to honor those who have fought for civil unions for so many years, and then the unions.
Without beginning or end, they symbolize eternity.
Reverends from local churches presided over the civil unions. The couple said they wanted their unions to become official as soon as possible.
We really don't want to wait any longer because we have been together for 33 years, waiting for the opportunity and our rights and everything that goes with it. So why wait?
The historic part of it for me is that to be one of the first to open that door so that the rest of them after us, there's others out there that want to do this, and I can show them, we can show them, hey, you love somebody, you have the right to be with them the rest of your life also.
They say the official recognition is important.
It means that our state supports us, and that's a really good feeling after all this time. And it'll be that much easier for those who come after us.
And they have a message to other same-sex couples.
Our message is go for the gusto. Like they say in Hawaii, go for broke. Don't be ashamed.
To happiness.
I thought they said in Hawaii, nice weather we're having.
Or aloha.
Right. Well, congratulations, Hawaiians and people from Delaware.
And congratulations to Johnny Weir, who actually legally married his partner of some years, Viktor Voronov, who's Russian but not a skater. And Johnny says Viktor didn't even know he was a skater when they met.
Those make for the best kind of marriages, especially when you're a famous person, I guess. But the interesting thing is, don't forget, Johnny Weir took all this time to come out, even though he was a rather flamboyant skater. He would not acknowledge who he was. But if you want to get married, you have to say who you are, you see.
Probably.
He did it for his book.
Rumors are that Ricky Martin, who we thought was going to get married in Spain, may actually get married in New York City at the end of this month. It's supposed to be January 28th, not confirmed yet, but that's the rumor. We do know for sure that Assemblymember Daniel O'Donnell of the New York State Legislature will marry his very longtime partner, John Banta, on January 29th here in New York City. They have been
together since their college days.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And
congratulations.
Who is pushing for civil unions in Colorado this year?
Conservatives. A group of conservatives has gotten together and said this is part of our core principles. And I think marriage is a very conservative value. I mean, what could be more conservative in terms of relationships? And yes, they're pushing it, and their support is being welcomed by the Democrats.
Well, it'll be interesting to see whether Ted Haggard joins them, a famous Colorado evangelist.
Oh, is he allowed back in the state?
Are you kidding? He's rebuilt his whole church in southern Colorado. And he was on that new hit program, Celebrity Wife Swap, this week. And
switching with Gary Busey, which, well, now that I look at my hair looks a little like Gary Busey's this week.
I think it's the scruff.
I was wearing a hat on the way up because it's cold in New York.
And you've been sick, so you haven't felt like shaving. So you do look a little Gary Busey-ish. But Ted Haggard and Gary Busey were on a local Fox program in L.A. to promote this appearance on Celebrity Wife Swap. So those hard-hitting reporters on Fox said, "Hey, Ted, what's this Celebrity Wife Swap? Aren't you gay?" And,
why aren't you swapping with Danny O'Donnell and John Banta?
Yeah, where's your boyfriend? And he says, that was a period of my life. I've gotten past that. And
very good.
Well, you said that before. But then they started asking him about same-sex marriage and his opinion. He said, people don't realize I've been for civil unions since the 1980s. No. I believe in equality under the law. I believe we have to get rid of inequality, and whatever the legislature decides, civil unions, marriage, whatever, that is up to them, and we must get rid of inequality.
Is this the major development of 2011 that you were talking about, that you were going to talk about this week?
No.
I had never heard that before. And I think it's a bunch of nonsense because he was the head of the evangelicals, and he obviously never pushed any such thing.
Well, I remember when his scandal broke that there was some consternation because he had had some progressive leanings in his evangelism. But here's the deal. He's in Colorado. He says he's for civil unions. The right wing is pushing for civil unions now. Let's see whether he becomes a major player.
Well, we'll find out, because the courts are upholding all these disclosure laws. If you give to the anti-cause, or the pro-cause for that matter, these laws that require disclosure of donors are being upheld. In this case, it's Washington State's public disclosure law, which was once again upheld by the courts.
Well, yes, they've been going back and forth.
This was a three-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit.
Yes, the Family Policy Institute of Washington has to reveal the names of its donors to its Political Action Committee. They are an affiliate of Focus on the Family Research Council, the National Organization for Marriage, which said, in the context of this case or elsewhere, discrimination is not only appropriate, it is necessary for survival.
They're just scaredy cats.
They're extreme scaredy cats.
Don't hide your love under a bushel basket. Let it shine forth.
And speaking of scaredy cats, the North Carolina Family Policy Council is trying to scare the heck out of its supporters. They put together an ad that they're running on their website, I think, and maybe in magazines, that shows just how scared they are of what little old us can do to them. They put a bullseye target on a straight married couple.
Because that's what they're saying we're trying to do by opening marriage to same-sex couples.
This is crazy making.
Well, there was that state senator in Minnesota whose marriage broke up, and we ended up apologizing for breaking up her marriage. She was a big opponent. Amy Koch, I think, or Koch, K-O-C-H, was her name.
Well, this does bring me to, I challenged Andy on our trip here to the studio today to come up with what he thought was the most important development of the year 2011.
Who's going to go first?
Well, we both have them written down, and I brought this up, so I'll go first. I actually have two, but my main one is the religious right coming up with this concept of victimization. I think this is the most appalling but important development, new concept that was developed in 2011.
And we're going to talk about that more in the context of the Catholic Church in Illinois.
Absolutely.
The Catholic Church in general is talking about this all the time.
Yeah, well, they are, and this has become the theme. And whether they ride this to victory or not, this is their new approach.
The right wing playing the victim, because they always, first of all, for a long time, all they did is accuse us of playing the victim.
Yes.
Always. But then when they formed things like the Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights, they essentially just adopted all of our rhetoric about we are a persecuted minority.
Yeah.
Catholics! Now, there was a time in New York, and elsewhere where Catholics were a minority and had trouble and all that kind of stuff.
But we could go back to the Inquisition.
Not lately. Not lately in this country.
Well, I think that their formation of this concept is a really scary and huge development.
Well, I picked a development that I think is a double-edged sword, and that is the victory in same-sex marriage in New York showed that if we all work together, we can get things done.
Yes.
Because it's one of the reasons we haven't gotten a lot of things over the last 20 years, and because organizations compete with each other. The downside of this in New York was it was all done in secret, and nothing is done openly.
Yes.
So you shouldn't have to have that aspect of it to win.
And my 1A is the Obama administration deciding to switch sides on DOMA.
Oh, that's huge.
And coming up with the concept of needing strict scrutiny to support any discrimination against LGBT people.
An enormous legal breakthrough.
Huge, amazing.
And there's other little things that we have to clean up in our society, like in the District of Columbia. Now, anybody can go get married, a same-sex couple can go get married in District of Columbia. When you go home to your home states, you might not be able to get a divorce because, and D.C. has all these residency requirements for divorce, so they're going to change that law. They're going to introduce a bill to change that law this year so that you can come in and get a divorce and waive the residency requirement and all that kind of stuff. And no one showed up to testify against it.
Those hypocrites, aren't they supposed to be standing in the way of divorce? And statistics out of New York City, the Marriage Bureau, marriage license requests have gone up 14% in the last 6 months over the last 6 months of 2010.
Because of us.
Well, that's the assumption, that since same-sex marriage was legalized, we've been added on. Although, since they don't calculate the gender on these, we could say that we've made marriage so popular again that even more straight people are getting married.
Absolutely. All right, big case in Florida. Concentrate on this one. The plaintiff in the case was an ovum donor. She donated an ovum to her partner so that they could have a kid together.
Right.
Now, Florida law, and then the woman who got the egg ran off with the kid to Australia. So the trial court said, well, ovum donors don't have any rights. That's Florida law. But the Court of Appeals said, this woman wasn't donating an ovum. She was trying to have a kid with her partner in this way, and therefore she does have rights, and that is a breakthrough as well.
Okay. We will find out what happens to marriage in New Hampshire shortly. The New Hampshire House may vote as early as this month on a bill to repeal marriage rights in New Hampshire, and you will see this as part of the New Hampshire primary coming up momentarily.
Do they just need a majority vote?
For the original vote, maybe, but Governor John Lynch has promised to veto, and they certainly need
2/3.
Yes.
And we don't know that they have that 2/3.
We
or whatever.
think we can hold on to marriage in New Hampshire, but it's very, very close, and we'll see whether rhetoric from the Republican presidential candidates has any effect on this, because was it Mitt Romney who has already said he supports repeal of the New Hampshire marriage law?
Isn't it our side that's running ads there now saying, stay out of our business?
Probably.
Yeah. And then there's Governor Snyder, the Michigan governor, who signed House Bill 4770, which eliminates health care coverage for domestic partners of public employees. Another nice Christmas present. How low can you go? And you're right. You talk about job killers. This is going to drive people out of the state and make them want to leave.
First, you think of the public employees of the state who are directly affected, and specifically university employees. And a lot of professors choose where to go these days based on their partner benefits, and this is really freaking out the university system.
But I'm sure that from the point of view of the right wing, this is going to get us the right kind of people in Michigan and get away of all those bad, evil homosexuals.
Well, all of this has still been part of the Republican primaries, although certainly not in the major debates. And we're back to the debates this weekend. We get to see another one Saturday night.
Right. We're taping while people are getting dressed to go to the... It's not even a poll in Iowa. No delegates were selected this week in Iowa.
No, the delegates are selected at subsequent county and state conventions. These caucuses are not involved in delegate selection.
It's a popularity contest. I'm not knocking, but.
Well, it's a popularity contest for the candidates. It's a revenue producer for the state. It's about getting all the
It's a job creator.
Yes, exactly. In a state which is doing okay, by the way. But the candidates are out there, and they are still acting up in bad ways. Newt Gingrich, as he slides into the muck in the polls, signed the National Organization for Marriage pledge.
And of course, everybody saw him crying over his mother who's got Alzheimer's or something, right? And he says, this is serious to me.
She's dead.
This is my family. This is my family. And of course, he's got the lesbian sister who he could give two craps about. My family.
No, he said, this is my mother. And Ron Paul, of course, it was noted, stood up for an endorsement by a Nebraska Kill the Gays preacher, Philip Kaser.
Literally believes in the death penalty for homosexuality because that is, after all, if you read your Bible, what it says.
And now, Ron Paul is appealing on a lot of levels as an anti-war candidate and a lot of other libertarian kinds of issues. But in 2008, it turns out, he showed up to and spoke as a keynote speaker to a big anniversary convention of the John Birch Society.
Is there still a John Birch Society?
There is a John Birch Society.
I thought it was just called the Republican Party now. Oops.
Almost. But Ron Paul endorsed the work of the John Birch Society. And that was 3 years ago, not 20 years ago, when he was publishing those newsletters that he now disavows. And last year, he was endorsed by David Duke. And he did not disavow that endorsement.
So there's a problem with him. And
I'd watch out for
now
him.
I see that Gary Johnson, former New Mexico governor, is thinking of running as the Libertarian Party candidate wants to run as the Libertarian Party candidate nationally for president. And he does support marriage rights for same-sex couples.
Oh, he's one of our pals there.
But if Ron Paul loses, he might run as the Libertarian candidate as well.
Wow, a fight for the Libertarian nomination.
Right. And then there's Rick Santorum, who came out what are we going to do once we get rid of same-sex marriage rights? What are we going to do about all those couples that got married? Those will be dissolved, he says.
Well, this he said in an interview with Chuck Todd of NBC. And before he got to that, because I watched the whole 20 minutes, we're not going to subject you to that, just a couple of minutes. But here's what he said previous to that. He said, in this interview, contraception is wrong. It's done a lot of harm to a lot of people. Well, contraception.
That's what his church says, and he's a spokesperson for his church.
But he says he would have opposed the Texas sodomy law because he's against intrusions on people's private lives.
I'm shocked.
This guy is
sounds
crazy.
Like a softie.
He quotes Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh a lot, in case you had any soft spot for Rick Santorum. But here he is with Chuck Todd talking about what he would do or how he feels about same-sex marriage.
To be a state issue?
No, I think marriage has to be one thing for everybody. That you can't have 50 different marriage laws in this country. You have to have one marriage law, and you can't go to one state and be married in another state and not be married, because then you move to that state and how do you get divorced if you separate? I mean,
Mitt Romney actually asked this question and said, okay, if there became a federal constitutional amendment, what would you do with same-sex couples who got married? Would you make them get divorced? And he said you couldn't.
Well, their marriage would be invalid.
Do you think it would invalidate it?
I think their marriage. If the Constitution says marriage is this, then people who are not, whose marriage are not consistent with the Constitution.
My name is Tom, and do you believe that's the only way you can deal with this issue?
I'd love to think that there is another way of doing it, but I've got grave concerns about the Supreme Court and courts in the future and what they'll do to marriage, is what they've done to abortion in this country, which is take it away from the public. 32 times marriage has been voted on in 32 different states, from Maine to California, and 32 times traditional marriage has won. Why? Because when people understand the real consequences of what happens when we change the definition of marriage, people say, well, I want to be tolerant and I want people to be able to live the lives they want. And I'm the same way. I'm tolerant. People can live the lives they want.
Visitation rights and things like that for
same-sex couples can contract for just about everything that, quote, they privileges they get versus marriage, except direct government benefits. And, I believe, as I've talked about before, that marriage is a special union in our society. It's a special relationship. I can be your friend, and that's a very good and important relation. Friendship's a great and important relationships for society. The love I have for my aunt is a very important relationship, but it's not as important. It's not as important for the health of society, of men and women coming together, joining together in marriage, having children, and raising those children for the future of society. That's something that we need to celebrate, we need to promote, and we need to encourage, and you do that by giving special privileges under the marriage laws.
Oh, he wants special privileges.
First of all, if I were his aunt, I'd be damn offended by that statement. And the idea that us getting married, and I don't mean us specifically.
No, well, we could if we wanted to.
Yeah, we could. That would interfere with or demean opposite-sex couples getting married is ridiculous. But Chuck Todd went on to ask him, well, you cite 32 state votes against same-sex marriage as your support for this, but what if people change their mind? If polls show that people are changing their minds, what if people want to vote to legalize same-sex marriage? And he says, oh, well, you know, there's right and wrong, and I believe in both reason and faith, and even if the public opinion shifts, it's wrong.
You can't change God's law.
So I'm going to cite what I want here, but then I'll change it to, if it shifts, to cite something else.
And he
there.
talks about friendship. The Catholic Church used to have these sort of same-sex ceremonies for friends and loved, you know, people who loved each other, couples, whether sexually or not sexually. They got rid of them, but you know, they should bring them back.
Someone glitter bombed Santorum in Iowa, yelling, "Stop the hate, taste the rainbow," but it was sort of minor and didn't have a big effect.
Now, my favorite story of the week is about Mitt Romney.
Oh, good, because I got one about Rick Perry.
Well, Mitt Romney is trying to be a super patriot, and Obama hates America and wants to make it into Europe, and I love America. And what he's doing, because he doesn't know
Because Jesus was born in America.
Well, you know, England's favorite song is about Jesus trotting the land of
Jerusalem. I sang it every year in my junior high.
But
I can still sing it.
Jesus was everywhere. But let's get back to Romney. So, what is he going to say about this? So he just recites the lyrics of patriotic songs, and his favorite is "America the Beautiful." Now, Mitt. America the Beautiful was written by Catherine Lee Bates, who was the lover of Catherine Coman. They were both professors at Wellesley College. They were partners for 25 years in a Boston marriage. Also, it was called a Wellesley marriage in those days. So your favorite song is by a lesbian. How about maybe he'll stop quoting her?
Probably not. Here's my favorite story of the week. Rick Perry. If only
I remember
he were
him.
still relevant. I'm sorry we may lose him soon. Rick Perry, governor of Texas, no idea what Lawrence v. Texas is.
Oh, right, that's right.
And he was the governor when it was decided.
I can't be expected to know every Supreme Court decision. Average Americans don't. I mean, this isn't a gay thing, but Perry...
No idea. They gave him like 6 chances to figure it out.
Perry was on about, and he was talking about foreign policy, and he said, would you move the capital, the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem? You know, and oh, absolutely, first thing. And would you? What about the settlements on the West Bank? I mean, you know, what are you going to do about that? Oh, that's fine. He said. They said, well, wait a minute. American foreign policy for the last 40 years has been, we don't support those settlements. He says, well, I'm different. He's different. He's trying to tell us something about his different. I'm different. They said, but Ronald Reagan didn't support it. George Bush. He says, maybe I'm better than they are.
I quote again Maureen Dowd, Rick Perry, George Bush without the brains. Last quote of 2011. But as long as we're going back in time, another favorite story of the week.
Well, you're leaving. You might as well not leave Lawrence v. Texas because we didn't talk enough on our last week's show about John Lawrence.
Oh, we certainly noted his passing.
Who died. He was the guy arrested with John Lawrence.
Tyrone Garner.
Tyrone Garner, who's also passed away.
Yeah.
And he died at the age of 68.
Individual heroes fighting back, personally offended. Watch out for Santorum's aunt. She may be the next hero. But as we look backwards, we should also note that Richard Nixon was in the news this week because there is a new book coming out at the end of this month by a former UPI reporter, Don Folsom. The book is called Nixon's Darkest Secrets, and it talks about, first of all, it says he was extremely mean to Pat.
Yes,
well,
whacked her around.
Well, remember his quote when he got up in a speech and said, "America can't stand Pat." That was a big laugh line.
But she stayed with him.
Yeah.
She was long-suffering.
She certainly was. He drank a lot. He had a lot of mafia connections, but his biggest mafia connection was his pal, Bebe Rebozo.
When we were growing up, we always read about Nixon for his vacations would go down to Key Biscayne and hang out with Bebe Rebozo.
Yes. who was very mafia connected. So now in this new book by Don Folsom, Nixon's Darkest Secrets,
They're saying that they held hands.
Under the table at dinner. And that perhaps they had more than a friendship. Rick Santorum.
And the staff was very jealous of his relationship with Bibi.
Well, Alexander Haig was very jealous of his relationship.
Alexander Haig wanted power. I'm in control now.
Henry Kissinger was jealous of his relationship with Bibi Rebozo. So, Nixon certainly, like everyone else at the time, a huge homophobe, but was
favorite word began with C, ended in R.
Yes. 4, 6, 10 letters.
It's on all the Nixon tapes. And he hated gay people.
Ugh.
I mean, he spoke against gay people on the tapes.
He hated Jews. He hated black people. The list is endless.
But he loved America, the beautiful.
Now, someone else who has not a terrifically positive view of us is the Chicago Catholic Cardinal.
Francis George, his name is. 2 first names, normally 2 first names, porn star. But Francis...
I thought that was your dog and your street.
You look up porn star names. We'll talk more about that later. But Francis George, who is, look, they're all right-wing, but this is, right, so they're planning the Pride March in Chicago.
And it's bigger and bigger, and they have to change the route because now they've got 800,000 people showing up, and they need more room for it.
So the pastor of a church along the route, a Catholic church, says, we can't have our church services with this filth, going on outside.
And it's too crowded. Our parishioners can't get into the church.
Please. So this cannot stand. Now, I think before anything happens, the organizers say, we'll move it a little later, which I think was a mistake because you give in to one of these types, because there's churches all over the place, and you can't let people object to it on that basis.
No, you have to make access available on the sidewalk for people to get into the church. You can do that,
St. Patrick's Cathedral is open on the Pride Day. Actually, we don't even go past St. Patrick's anymore.
No.
And by the way, in New York, there were mayors who wouldn't march past St. Patrick's with us. Named Bloom. Well, we don't march past it anymore.
Yeah.
It's all downtown because it's shorter. But anyway, so Cardinal George makes his comments about this. He says,
even after.
Well, we have film on this.
But give the background.
Well, he says, you don't want the gay liberation movement to morph into something like the Ku Klux Klan demonstrating in the streets against Catholicism. The rhetoric of the Ku Klux Klan? The rhetoric of some of the gay liberation people. Who's the enemy? Who's the enemy? The Catholic Church. That's his quote. The Ku Klux Klan. I mean, shoot. It's one thing to call us Nazis, which people make that, but that now but the Ku Klux Klan. Unbelievable. I mean, really unbelievable.
Mr. Cardinal, you started it.
Mr. George.
And we're not out lynching Catholics.
We're not trying to hurt anybody.
No.
In fact, a lot of our people are Catholic.
So the local news in Chicago took note of this because they thought that rhetoric was a little extreme. So it went back and forth, and first he backed down, and then he repeated it, and here's the local news report on it.
Francis, Cardinal George is not backing down from comments he made comparing aspects of the gay rights movement to activities of the Ku Klux Klan. It all stems from a dispute over the Gay Pride Parade tonight. The Cardinal says the parade organizers invited his comments. CBS 2's Kristen Hartman has the story.
Chicago's 2012 Gay Pride Parade was supposed to run past Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church right at Mass time. Francis Cardinal George seemed to have a problem with that. He spoke of demonstrations against Catholicism. He referenced the Ku Klux Klan. Not popular remarks with the city's gay community, including Illinois State Rep Greg Harris.
We should be at a time we're trying to bring people together, not say divisive things and pull people apart.
What I was comparing was a parade to a parade. Obviously, it's absurd to say say that the gay and lesbian community are the Ku Kluxers. But if you organize a parade that looks like parades that we've had in our past because it stops us from worshiping God, well, then that's the comparison.
That was over the weekend. Now there's another statement from the Cardinal defending his stance. It says it was apparent the parade would interfere with worship. Then it reads, in part, quote, when the pastor's request for reconsideration of the plans was ignored, the organizers invited an obvious comparison to other groups who have historically attempted to stifle the religious freedom of the Catholic Church. One such organization is the Ku Klux Klan.
This statement, does it make it any better or no?
In my mind, no.
Anthony Martinez is Catholic and gay. He wrote a blog about the Cardinal's initial words. He's not happy with the follow-up.
Take responsibility for your words and apologize wholeheartedly.
He told me society often degrades the gay community, and he does not expect that from a man of faith. The Cardinal in his statement said it is wrong the gay community has been harassed, but you can address that issue without disturbing worship. He's glad the parade's start time changed. Walter and Kate.
Well, I don't think he's showing true contrition, and I don't think he's going to be forgiven. The Truth Wins Out has taken out a full-page ad against him in the papers. People want him to resign. He is going to resign, actually. He's going to offer his resignation to the Pope because he is 75. But some people think the Pope's going to keep him on for a while after this good showing.
Yeah. And just to not look like he's backing down to us.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, you don't want to leave Illinois because they're the ones who are dropping their adoption programs essentially because there's been big news about this. The Illinois bishops, they're going to be Catholic Charities not going to do.
Well, the New York Times finally caught up with it.
Well, but here's the thing. They're going to morph into secular agencies. The people running them are going. So, in other words, I guess it's not bad for Catholic people to do this, to let gay people adopt children and things. They just don't want to do it under Catholic auspices. It sounds once again, it doesn't sound like
full hypocrisy on the part of the church.
Doesn't sound like they're upholding standards.
Well, I have mixed feeling about the latest news from New York City Controller John Liu's office. Mm-hmm. They've succeeded in getting the heinous defense contractor, KBR, to adopt non-discrimination policies for sexual orientation and gender identity. What's next? Halliburton? Or are they affiliates of each other now?
Well, what's next is from the Roman Catholic Church in general. Now, they already did this in Britain. Now they're going to do it in the United States. There are a lot of Anglicans in the United States, Episcopalians, disaffected from the church, from their church, because it's starting to accept gay people. And this is the thing that is driving people from the church. So they're being invited to join the Catholic Church. They're essentially setting up a Catholic diocese across the whole nation out of, where are they doing it? Out of New Mexico. Yeah, well, the guy's from New Mexico. But, they're doing it out of Houston. So they're setting this up so that these Anglicans can come in, they can keep using their prayer book. They're even accepting married Episcopal clergy. Well, yeah, they have, but I'm saying, they've been trying to reconcile the two churches for years, but the thing bringing them together is their hatred of gay people.
Yes, and there's always been an Episcopalianism, because my father was an Episcopalian, a high Episcopal church and a low Episcopal church. And the high Episcopal church is very close to Catholicism.
I went to a service in one of them once in New York when I was a kid, and I thought I was at a Catholic service until I was informed Smoky Mary's in the theater district. St. Mary the Virgin. Okay. It's very famous among actors.
The low Episcopalians are not quite so rigid.
All right.
Are we?
Well, no, and then in San Francisco, they were going to have a big forum at a Catholic church and invited some gay speakers, and the archdiocese stopped it. I mean, they don't even want people talking about these issues.
It's an interesting question to think about whether they will ever get over this or whether they're going to stay rigid until they disappear.
And over Christmas time, there was attention in the New York Times to the journalist we know, Bill Browning's campaign to boycott the Salvation Army, the tea kettles and things like that. And, in the past they used to say, well, donations kept going up. Well, donations did go down this year in the tea kettles because the Salvation Army said they're going to keep tinkling into the new year because they didn't make enough money. All right, a couple of other...
The criticism of the Salvation Army is that they wouldn't serve a gay couple as a couple.
Well, they say they will now
in
this story.
Yes.
But anyway.
And they don't provide same-sex partner benefits.
Please.
Yeah.
Well, none of it do a lot of the other churches, including the Catholic Church and the conservative Orthodox Jews and all that other kind of stuff. All right, in New York, murder trial ended in a mistrial of a gay man by a gay person. This was the murder of Edgard Mercado in 2009. Now, they were together for a sex thing. That's how they met. But the killer, and again, it ended in, his name is Devon Robinson. It ended in a mistrial because the jury could not agree.
Well, he changed his story radically.
Originally said it was self-defense.
Yeah.
But then, he said, oh, no, it was a sex thing going wrong. And the guy got crazy. But the DA says he's going to retry it.
Yeah.
And that, okay.
And at the same time, January 1st, that civil unions took effect in Hawaii and Delaware, the California education law, SB 48, also is now in effect, which mandates the teaching of accurate history, including gay people, transgender people, and the right wing is trying with several ballot measures to get rid of that law, but they could not prevent it from going into effect January 1st. Now, do I think suddenly a lot of lesson plans were changed? Probably not immediately. Textbooks take longer than that to change, but it's on the way. All right, international news. The former Prime Minister of Spain, Zapatero, was interviewed about his last
tenure.
Term. Yes. And he was asked,
his party lost the election.
Is there anything that stands out for you that you accomplished in office as Prime Minister that you're particularly proud of? And he said, well, if I have to look at things that people talk to me the most about that seems to have had the greatest impact, it's the legalization of same-sex marriage.
People thank me every week about that, he said. Mention it to me.
Very nice.
So he's very happy about that.
And we've talked about repeatedly here about the legalization of same-sex marriage in Mexico. It is legal in Mexico City. It is not legal in other provinces of Mexico, but other provinces have to recognize the legality of same-sex marriages performed in Mexico City. Well, a lesbian couple in another province, in Quintana Roo, my pronunciation on that was corrected by a viewer, challenged that because the law there is not gender specific. And they won a case in court, and now that district has decided, okay, we're not going to fight this anymore. We're going to go ahead. And this is the resort areas of Cancun and surrounding areas. So if you want to get married in Mexico, you can go to Cancun and get married.
The law was not gender specific in New York either, but they still didn't let us do it.
Well, that was a mistake on their part.
And I don't know if we're going to get it in Australia, but I mean, the Labour Party now, which is in power, does support it, but the head of the Labour Party, who's the Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, does not support it, and they think the chances are slim of success on that.
Now, we've heard for years that one of the most dangerous places to be or to travel if you are LGBT is the country of Jamaica. Mm-hmm. And Jamaica is well aware of its reputation. And they are in the midst, actually, they just completed an election for a new prime minister and parliament there. And the two major candidates for prime minister were having a televised debate. And they were asked about their attitude towards gay people and specifically towards having gay people in their cabinet.
Because this was asked of the sitting prime minister, and he was like, oh, well, that's not, people aren't going to be happy with that in Jamaica.
Yeah, I'm not going to have gay people in my cabinet. So we have two people debating here, two candidates. The man who is of the same party as the current ruling prime minister, and the woman who is of the opposition party, who ended up winning the election. So let's look at a couple minutes from their debate.
And now, Dion Jackson Miller, your question to Mr. Holness. Mr. Holness, Jamaica has an international reputation for homophobia. What do you think of former Prime Minister Golding's statement that homosexuals were not welcome in his cabinet, and do you share that sentiment?
The challenge that Jamaica faces is that in the modern world, there are minimum standards of human rights which we must meet. And Jamaica has done so on all occasions. However, as a society, we have to determine what our civil rights are, which is slightly different. We have taken steps in our parliament with the Bill of Rights, which is an advance in the right direction. We are an open society, and the issues that are difficult, uncomfortable to discuss, as a society progresses, these issues are being discussed. People are entitled to their opinion, and as well as I am entitled to mine. But as leader of the country, I have to respect everybody's opinion and make sure that the institutions of freedom are well in place so that the debate can continue.
Thank you, Mr. Holness. Your rebuttal, Mrs. Simpson-Miller.
Our administration believes in protecting the human rights of all Jamaicans. No one should be discriminated against because of their sexual orientation. Government should provide the protection. And I think that we should have a look at the Buggery law, and that members of parliament should be given the opportunity to vote with their conscience on consultation with their constituents. But for me, I do not support the position of the former Prime Minister, because people should be appointed to position based on their ability to manage and
Thank
to
you,
lead.
Mrs. Simpson-Miller. Dion Jackson-Miller has indicated that she will now take her second follow-up question to Mr. Holness.
Mr. Holness, do you share the sentiment that you don't want any homosexuals in your cabinet?
My sentiments reflect the sentiments of the country. The Prime Minister has a discretion, but that discretion cannot be exercised in a vacuum.
Thank you, Mr. Holness. Mrs. Simpson-Miller?
I certainly do not pry, or do I have any intention of prying in the private business of anyone. I would appoint anyone with the ability, the capacity, and the capability to manage in my cabinet.
Yay!
Very, very good.
She
won. Yes. Her first part of the answer was better. Then she sort of looked at it as a privacy issue, but that's not what we're really fighting for. We're fighting for the right to be out and open and all that kind of stuff.
If we can accept incrementalism
I
in Hawaii,
think it's great, and I think it's great she got elected.
Really great. And she also referred to, it wasn't easy to hear, but she referred to re-examining the Buggery law, which of course is the sodomy law.
Started by Queen Victoria.
And she came out for a re-examination and repeal of the sodomy law.
Well, speaking of Britain, they're trying to make it up to Alan Turing. He was the guy who broke the code in World War II, the Nazi code. He was a computer expert, but really a computer innovator. And he was arrested for homosexuality after the war and killed himself after getting horrible treatments from the government.
Chemically castrated.
So they're giving him a stamp.
But this
Britain.
picture is not what you will see on the stamp.
No.
This is a lovely picture of Alan
They're going to have a
Turing.
picture of the computer on his stamp.
Too bad. Maybe they'll come up with another stamp
All right.
of him. All right. AIDS news.
Yeah.
We got a note from a viewer about a porn site that is starting suddenly, a popular porn site, SeanCody.com, that is showing bareback porn. And it reminded us that the AIDS Healthcare Foundation in LA is pushing ballot measures in LA City and county that would mandate use of condoms in porn.
I think, look, I mean, people talk about sexual freedom and all that kind of stuff and what you can do, but this is a business.
Yes.
And businesses should have health regulations.
It's a safety measure.
Exactly.
It should come under the Occupational Safety and Health.
And it's just like, you shouldn't be allowed to smoke in bars. It protects the workers in the bars as well, that kind of stuff.
Right, because the workers are being pressured not to use condoms and to put themselves at risk, and that is a bad business.
Bareback sex in porn is proliferating, and the point is we need to eroticize safe sex. I mean, even when they put
I've been hearing about this for 30 years.
Even when they put condoms on in porn, I don't know how I know these things. They often all of a sudden it's on. It didn't happen. You don't see them putting it on. Come on. I mean, really, this would really help the safe sex movement if they would do this.
I've told this story before, but not lately. When we were doing AIDS education and doing condom demonstrations in the school, I was at some holiday family celebration telling this story to an uncle of mine who said, I never could figure out how to put them on.
Well,
you need to teach people.
If you don't know how to put them on, go to YouTube and just put my name in, because the first thing that comes up is me doing a condom demonstration in 1986.
Probably not on yourself.
No, we weren't allowed to do that. Yeah. It's on a banana, I think.
The AIDS Healthcare Foundation also famously put a float in the Rose Bowl parade this year, the Rose Parade, for Elizabeth Taylor, who died last year, and celebrated her as a great AIDS activist and champion for people with AIDS. It was kind of a tacky little float, but it was terrific to have that as part of the Rose Parade.
And Johnson & Johnson is behaving very tackily, so Doctors Without Borders is going after them, demanding that they make 3 of their HIV/AIDS drugs available to something called the Medicines Patent Pool, which means that it can be manufactured cheaply elsewhere in the world to help poor people. I mean, otherwise these people aren't going to get these drugs because there's no way to. For some of them cost $10,000 a year.
A lot of pharmaceutical companies are under pressure to do this, and I think only one has agreed to do it so far, and this is an ongoing campaign.
And we have to recognize that even the drugs that we are able to get to a lot of people in the third world live out their usefulness for them.
Look,
and they need new drugs.
The Science magazine breakthrough of the year is that treatment is prevention, and that the way to stop this epidemic is to treat people, which means less transmission and saving lives. And if treatment is not financially possible around the world, the epidemic is going to continue. There is a new report out of British Columbia that says new HIV cases and AIDS deaths are both going steadily down because they are using treatment as prevention. And they're encouraging people to test and putting them on treatment immediately. They are providing places for people who are injecting drugs to do it safely.
It's reduced HIV transmission in couples by 96%.
So the idea that these pharmaceutical companies are standing in the way of ending this epidemic by keeping their already astronomical profits high is egregious.
And a group of researchers just wrote in the Journal of the American Chemical Society about a new thing that they think will be a breakthrough in terms of getting drugs that can penetrate the blood-brain barrier, which has been a problem because the virus gets in there, but the drugs don't, and because it's prevented, and they've found a way to do that, and I hope it works out.
And there was also a pretty charming story in the Times this last week about how teenagers are now able to get sex ed info online by texting to Planned Parenthood and other places, and that they're no longer relying just on their stupid health teachers.
And a horrifying story from late last year.
And I have to apologize for calling people stupid last week.
I know you don't think people are stupid.
I think some people are stupid, but not all people.
But the way they treated this Michigan Dental Center worker, James White, in Oakland County, they sprayed his area with Lysol.
Oh, the dental clinic is now denying it and saying his real problem was he showed up late all the time, and that's why we forced him out.
They did a lot of other things to him as well, which we could go on and on about, but that's being litigated. And okay.
So let's move on to entertainment news.
All right.
I'm very curious about your top 10.
My top 10?
Yeah.
Well, I actually, I hardly like anything, right? But
a few more than I do.
You
but
know that.
Not much.
But on Broadway, and some of these shows are still running. You can still see them. Anything Goes at the Stephen Sondheim
Is
Theater.
this going to be an alphabetical list?
Yes,
or
alphabetical, not in order.
People say, that's the
Cop out?
Yes, exactly.
All right.
You have to have a number one.
I'll pick a number one. The Book of Mormon, I would pick. La Cage aux Folles, which is gone, but when it had Harvey Fierstein and Christopher Siebert, it got very gay. Follies, which is still at the Marquis Theater, and I think is moving to another one.
For a little bit. I thought that was closing.
We'll see.
Soon.
Yes, it is. Good People with Frances McDormand, closed. Jerusalem with Mark Rylance, closed. Something You Can Still See, Mountaintop with Angela Bassett and Samuel Jackson about Dr. King. Stick Fly, currently on Broadway. Venus in Fur with Nina Arianda and Hugh Dancy. And Warhorse at Lincoln Center. The play, not the movie, although I like the movie as well. But I also had an off-Broadway list because there were so many good things I saw there, and I'll put it in my email.
Read it off.
I saw something called Born Bad about African Americans at Soho Rep. Simon Russell Beale did something called Bluebird at the Atlantic Theater. The Cherry Orchard at the Classic Stage Company was tremendous. King Lear, that the out-gay actor Derek Jacobi did at BAM. Also at BAM, Krapp's Last Tape with John Hurt. I put the marriage plays on my list. Newsies at Paper Mill Playhouse, way off Broadway in New Jersey.
But coming to Broadway.
Coming to Broadway. David Greenspan in The Patsy, where he played 10 roles from a 1925 play. Something called Picked at the Vineyard Theater. And my favorite of the year was Unnatural Acts, The Harvard Secret Court of 1920 at the Classic Stage Company. And then there are 3 from London that I hope will come. The Anna Christie with Jude Law. Clybourne Park, which was at an off-Broadway theater here in New York, is based on
I think it is coming.
Raisin in the Sun. It's coming here. Terrific. And Crazy for You, which I saw at the open air in London, and I hope that comes here as well.
Okay.
And but you better get your tickets. Naked Boys Singing is closing after how many thousand performances?
It's
been running since 1999.
Isn't it only straight bridal parties who go see that?
They say it's maintained about half gay, half what do they call them? Hen parties? Is that a derogatory expression?
Bachelorette parties?
Yes, that's
whatever.
What they make their money off. But it's closing on January 28th. And Elton John is producing a film about himself.
Well, who else would?
But he got Lee Hall, who wrote Billy Elliot, to write it. And he wants Justin Timberlake to play him. Not as preposterous as it sounds.
Absolutely not.
Because he played Elton before in a David LaChapelle, how do you say his name? Video
that's right.
of Rocket Man. And Elton says he was superb.
Yeah, but can he really sing?
Justin?
Yes. That was a joke.
And then there was this story. This is a play that's out of town, but it's the son of George Moscone, the slain mayor of San Francisco, when Harvey Milk was killed, was a little miffed that his father didn't play that much of a role in the film Milk.
Yeah.
So he wrote a play called Ghostlight, which is about his daddy. And his son is gay.
Well,
that's one of the reasons.
It's also a lot about him. That's one of the knocks on the play.
Well,
but we'll see.
I'm interested to see it. It's not here. It's way out of town.
San Francisco?
No, it's not San
Canada?
Francisco. No,
Seattle?
I didn't look through the whole damn stuff.
All right, we've run out
Berkeley
of time.
Rep.
Well, that's San Francisco.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Oh, 2012. See you next week.